Mannequin challenge over. Ooh, hey, I just got a text message. Welcome to the Eff Your Fears Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Monique Menard. Oh, I'm so excited for today. Today is going to be fun, y'all. We have got Christophe Zajac-Denek on the show. Yeah. Oh, it's kind of a big deal. Yeah.
The best show I've been a part of is Twin Peaks, the return season.
Oh, cool.
And I get to play a super brutal hitman who murders some people. And it was so cool to get that job and to work with David Lynch and the crew. That family has been so tight-knit for some of them for 30 years since the original season of Twin Peaks, which is incredible. And getting to play such a brutal character on any show is amazing. And I feel so humbled by it, but to get to do it with David Lynch. Also, I would like to say that is most likely the one role where I worn the least amount of makeup, that you actually see my face, and I have messed up teeth on the show. And that's kind of it. I'm just, my face, which was amazing to do. I'm a huge David Lynch fan before I booked the show. And so that is definitely a career highlight. And I've also just felt like I've been absorbed into this family of legends. We would go out and have monthly dinners and stuff in LA and just connect. And I would show up and be like, I don't know why I'm here. And then somebody from the first season would be like, yeah, I don't know why I'm here either, but you're with us now. So you're accepted. Just go with it.
Yes, he's done a little bit of everything in the entertainment industry. I'm so impressed. Plus, we had a bear show up in the podcast. Yeah, you're just going to have to check it out. You won't even believe me. Yes, a bear shows up. Like, it actually happened. Spoiler alert. But we talk about his career. He is a little person, and we talk about his career trajectory within the arts and how nothing kind of held him back. He just did what he wanted and did it on his own terms, and it's pretty badass. So I like him a lot. We met at a podcast convention. We'll be telling you all this stuff during the episode, but you're here. I'm grateful. And my quote for the day that I'd like to talk about is, my quote. Oh, what was it? Okay, yeah. Fall in love with failing. Let that sink in for a sec. Fall in love with failing. Fall in love with failure. Fall in love with falling down. Fall in love with failing. What does that mean? When you fall in love with failing, what have you done? Yes, you in the back? Yes, I hear you. Yes, you've tried. So often we don't do things because we're scared, because we're worried, because we don't know if it's going to work out. And sometimes we get just paralyzed with fear, or we just don't want to take the risk. It's one or the other. Or it's just like, I don't know. There's a bunch of different reasons why we don't try. But I love this quote, fall in love with failure, because it's one of those things of when you try something, you get to do it. You may come to your own conclusion of you're not very good at it, but then you can readjust and you can figure out how to get better at it. So when we go at things just thinking, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be perfect and it's going to be great. And then we do it and we fail. And sometimes we're like, well, I'm not going to do it again because I failed. I'm not going to do it again. Why would I do it again? Because you might do it better. That's why you should do it again. That's why you should try. But doing means that you've put the effort out and you've done it. Failing, yes, it feels like it's a failure. It feels like it's a bad thing. But when you really look back in your life and you think about the things that you tried and the things that you didn't get, it sucks. Yeah, it totally sucks. Do you see any resolution that happened after where you're like, maybe that's why it happened? Maybe I wasn't ready yet. Maybe I needed to do it on my own terms. Maybe if I would have done it alone, it wouldn't have been as good as now I have a partner to do it. It's tough. It's tough. And I mean specifically to artists who put themselves out there and are just trying to be seen in a sea full of faces. It's so hard. It's so hard. But when you fall in love with failing, you kind of become addicted with the art of doing. And the art of doing, it seasons you. It gets you in it. It moves you forward. You're constantly thinking of something, the next step to do. So I challenge you, my dear friends out there, and if you accept this challenge, please put a comment down below. If you accept this challenge, I challenge you to fail fantastically one time this week. Set yourself up. Set yourself up for success, but if you fail fantastically. Give it your all. Why not? It's like my dear friend Emmy Hart says. I don't even know where to go with that one. I just wanted to tell you to check out The Art of Blowing It. Because I said the art, it just got me thinking. The Art of Blowing It is a show that I wrote. And we created it, we did it. I directed it, I star in it. It's like a big baby boy, you know, baby girl, baby boy, baby. It's like a big baby. And it's the most fun I've ever had doing work. And the reason that I created my own work is because I knew no one was ever going to create the part for me that I wanted to play as well as me. You know? I mean, true, you'll get lucky in life. You'll be able to play your dream role, you know, if you want to play Mama Rose, or you'll get that part that you always wanted. That can happen. But when you actually write something for yourself, you're able to just fucking point and just like pick out all the little things inside your brain that you can think up. And there's so much gratification in that. But the thing with failing fantastically, it kind of goes with it, because we launched it and it's like not a lot of people have checked it out. And a piece of me is like, God, what was all this for? Why create something if no one can watch it? What's the point? It's not the right way to think. That's ego. That's ego coming in the way, saying what you did wasn't good enough. No one wants to see it. Your friends don't even want to share it. People don't even want to like listen or talk about it. They're just being nice by saying it was funny. Like, that's what the critic inside my head says. And that bitch is wrong. Like, she's wrong. I know that because I've seen people see the show that didn't really know that I was like affiliated with it. I know that may sound absolutely crazy, but one person was watching it and they didn't realize I was Emmy Hart, and they were like, yeah, that show's funny. And I was like, cool. So the reason that I bring that up is the relatability factor, for you to know, like, everyone goes through it. Everyone goes through it. You save so much money, you create something, you put it out there, and then boom, nothing. It launches, nothing happens, and you feel like you lose momentum. That's when you keep failing. You keep putting it out there. You figure out different ways to put it out there. How do you go about it? You talk to people, you do your research, you figure out what your next step is. So I hope this has been helpful. It's been helpful for me. These podcasts have been my saving grace during the pandemic, because I've been able to connect with so many incredible performers who share their stories with me. And if you can't learn from everyone else, like, what the hell are you doing with your life? It means your ears need to be opened and you need to let your brain listen. So let's go ahead and listen. Let's listen to what Christophe had to say. He is just, I just love him. I love him so much. So let's go ahead and bring him out, and we'll talk to you later. Everybody, I'm very excited about my guest right over here. I've got Christophe Zajac-Denek. Welcome to the show, Christophe.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
You and I, actually, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody how we met?
We met at a podcast conference a month ago or so. Mm-hmm. And was it, you know, we didn't match up in the randomized quote unquote chat roulette thing that they had going on there for just networking. But I saw the logo of your podcast, and I was like, oh, I want to connect with her. So I think did I write you a message? I think
you did. And then I think that we ended up being at one of the same mixers, and then we chatted there.
At the very end, there was a huge mixer.
And I was, go ahead.
You go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm so happy that we ended up talking at the mixer because you were in a panel and I was like, oh, it'd be so cool to talk to him. And
Yeah.
then we ended up talking. You were like, hey, I want to talk to you. And I was like, score, let's talk. Let's do a podcast. So that's how we're here.
Yeah. Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You, my friend, you have a really cool story. So let's go ahead and like backtrack a little bit. So like, where were you born?
I was born in Detroit, Michigan.
Cool.
Yeah, my family's grown up in Metro Detroit, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, that just grew up there.
Mm-hmm. And so what were you like when you were a kid?
I was definitely an adventurous kid. My parents would travel me a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
so I got to see islands in the Caribbean, and my dad took me on road trips across the east and west of the United States, and then to a fishing trip in Canada. And my
Oh,
mom took
cool.
me to Quebec and just all over the place. And I was always encouraged to try new things, meet new people. My mom had this great idea because my mom was a French teacher, and so she
Mm-hmm.
would take her French students out for experiences and, want them to experience French culture and foods and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was a 4, 5, 6 year old, and my mom had this point system with me. And so in order to get me to try escargot or some sort of food that she didn't, that I, as a kid, you would never pick up on, like,
Yeah,
it's not a
yeah.
burger and fries. My mom devised this point system where I had to keep track of my own points, and I would barter with my mom to get however many points to like try escargot. And it'd be like, all right, I want 50 points. She's like, okay, you get 50 points if you try escargot. You don't have to eat it. You just have to take a bite, swallow it and see if you like it. And so I learned at an early age to just try everything, and if I got enough points, I would be able to get a toy or something like that from the toy store or something. So
What an amazing way to keep a child who's already imaginative in their own way, but also like, kids have that resistance to trying new food, like they get a little skeptical. What a great thing that your mom devised. That's so interesting.
yeah, both my parents really wanted me to not accept just the norms, and they really wanted me to see what was outside the box, and
Hmm.
and they succeeded for sure.
Yeah. So what were you kind of getting into when you were younger?
Um Everything. I was a huge Lego
Mm.
nerd. I also loved board games, and I loved making models of cars and like military planes and things like that. Um, I love the beach.
Mhm.
My mom would take me to the beach regularly. My dad had a farm, so I grew up exploring acres of land in my dad's farm and kind of like countryside in Michigan.
Mhm.
Um, and then a huge part of my youth was I'm a little person. I'm 4 foot 4 inches tall. So
Mhm.
when I was 2, my parents found a specialist uh, for dwarfism. And so because I needed certain special medical care,
Mhm.
we started to go to Baltimore when I was 2 to see this specialist regularly.
And so what was that like? Like, so I would imagine that it's got to be difficult, like for your parents. They're like, okay, we want to give our kid everything that we possibly can. Yes, this may be something a little different. We're not exactly sure how to handle this. Let's get some information. So they kind of reach outside. When you were a kid, did you feel like this seemed like something weird? Or did your parents make it just feel like this is what life is? Like, what was the vibe?
Yeah, I mean, when you're a kid, I guess when you're your own self, you don't know any different at all.
Yeah.
So, I mean, once I learned to measure myself against what other people were going through, then I kind of realized it. But when you're 2, you know, you go along with everything. Like you
Yeah.
have no choice. So, they explained to me, my parents always treated me like a person and not a baby. And,
Mhm.
so they plainly explained to me what was going on. And, eventually you figure it out and you understand that, oh, you are going to need surgeries and you are going to have to continue to see this specialist. But I did everything, that I wanted to do. I was riding bikes and stuff. And that was a big thing that my parents had to navigate, because when I was born, there wasn't any ultrasounds or any ways to tell dwarfism before birth.
Yeah.
So I came out, and the next day they knew immediately that something was strange or weird about me. The next day, the doctor came and saw my mom and said, he's not going to ride a bicycle. He'll never run. He's not going to be physically active. And my mom was just devastated. She just got hit with this Mack truck, and she was like, he's 1 day old. How can you say this to me? And, I interview my mom on my podcast, and I love that episode. But, my mom just recounts what that was like. And it was really, really difficult. But it was eye-opening too. And it just kind of was a testament to the strength of my parents going through and finding out what they needed to do for this, baby with dwarfism, and not really having a roadmap to help them at all.
Wow. Yeah. Well, we all definitely need to check out that episode. That sounds like an amazing episode of your podcast. And you bring up your podcast, which I absolutely adore your title. I'm Kind of a Big Deal.
I'm Kind of a Big Deal. Yep.
Yeah. And your graphic for it's great, because it's like it's like 5 blue people, then 1 like red person that's just a little shorter. Yep. And it's just such a great visual. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So there you are. You're going through life. You're a kid. You're getting older year by year. You may not be getting taller like some of your friends are. What kind of support did you have, like when you were younger, and kind of, because growing up is hard, period, like for everyone. And so like having an additional thing on top of it, like with the confidence and stuff, like what kind of support system did you have around you to be able to help you with your confidence?
Yeah, the support was incredible. I have a saying that I've kind of grown into on my podcast, and that is that little people have to grow up before everybody else. And that's definitely the case with me, because when I was 6, I had to have my first reconstructive leg surgery, and it took a village, to help me out. It wasn't just my mom and dad. It was family, friends, and extended family. They were coming to lift me out of my prone wheelchair and into bed, or lift me to help go to the bathroom, or come over and make food, or stay with me for a couple hours so my mom could run and go do groceries. I was 3 months in a hip spica cast, which goes from your chest to below your feet, with a bar running between your feet at 6 years old. So they operated on my legs, and then I had to stay 3 months in this cast. So you learn really quickly that this is what you have to do. And if you don't go through this, go through the surgery, go through the healing process, go through being with all these people invading your privacy at 6, you have no privacy because you can't do anything on your own. And then go through physical therapy. Like, you learn this wasn't an accident that happened to me. This is a genetically, born condition, and I don't know anything else. So this is just what you have to go through. And at 6, my class was great. They were awesome. There are photos of me in a prone wheelchair at the zoo with my class, and my parents probably took me to church and out to lunch. And I remember we went to a Detroit Tigers baseball game and stuff. Like, I went everywhere. This is, it didn't stop just because I had a cast on, I want to try everything, because my parents always showed me that go do everything, go do it, and that just ingrained in me. So when I was growing up, the support was absolutely huge. And then again at 16, I had another reconstructive leg operation, same type of cast for 3 months. So between my junior and senior years in high school.
Ooh,
and then,
those are rough years too.
Yeah, but again, it was the same thing, you know, family, friends, they all showed up. They all brought me food and helped me out and stayed the night and relieved my mom and stuff. And then at 17, I had a spinal fusion. So I have 2 rods connected with hooks attached to my spine from T1 to L4 because my dwarfism resulted in scoliosis in my back. So, so to correct that and keep it from getting any worse, I have a fused back, and my back essentially does not bend.
Hey, well,
I have perfect posture without trying at all.
that's a pro.
It's a pro for sure.
But I'm sure that there was some cons, like what was happening, especially like the back surgery and the recovery process after the back surgery and everything.
It's crazy because I had a feeling at 13 that I was going to have back surgery, and it ended up that I was going to have that. I ended up having it at 17. I am so lucky because I have 0 pain in my back. I don't take medications. I've toured the US playing in a rock and roll band. I'm a surfer. I've done stunts on TV shows and movies. So I'm extremely active and I'm smart about it. You know, I don't do the things that I know will injure me, but yeah, I'm very lucky as well.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing. I had back surgery last year like last year. And I mean, had I not had the back surgery, I wouldn't be where I am now. Like I wouldn't be as flexible and just my body. And it was because of those years of pratfalls and everything, just too many. Thinking my body was indestructible and thinking I could do anything. And like, I think it was a combination of that and like scoliosis as a kid. And like, I was always at the chiropractor as a kid. And I think just like the combination, but it's cool because surgery, like when it works, is such a great thing because it like gives you a new life. Like it really does. It's so incredible.
That's been it for me. Did you have much pain after your back surgery?
I had very, very minimal pain. Very minimal pain. I got so lucky. And one of my girlfriends had the exact same surgery like 6 weeks after. So she and I throughout this past year and a half have kind of been talking about, in contrast and comparing like our journeys and stuff. And like, you know, no offense to my friend, but she lifted and she twisted before they said that she could. And I was like, I'm not bending, I'm not lifting, I'm not twisting. I ain't fucking with that because I want my back to heal, because as it is, I'm already aggressive enough with my body and I don't need, I don't have it for a long time.
Yeah. And that stunt pay is tempting, you know?
Yeah, right. So, okay. So we'll kind of get to there in a sec. So there you are, you're 16, you had back surgery, you're doing good, you're out of it. What are you thinking you're going to do with the rest of your life? Because I feel like around 16, we're starting to kind of like think about that, right?
No, I have no idea. I knew I was going to go to college. I went to Michigan State University. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I love music. I started playing drums when I was 15, and I was playing in punk and ska bands in high school. And I was having so much fun with that. Like that was my world. That's who I hung out with. Those are the concerts I went to. And yeah, so I just went to school. I don't know. I went to school to kind of go to school. It was really just lackluster almost. I took such a wide range of subjects like chemistry and chem lab and just really difficult things that weren't in line with what I was into at all. And I ended up like landing on telecommunications and film and learning video and audio production. But all through that, I mean, that kind of went in line with the punk rock and the music production stuff.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So there you are, you're going to school, you're in for production, like media, you're
Mhm.
playing with the band. What are you thinking you're going to do when you're done with school?
I thought I would work at a recording studio.
Oh
I thought I
yeah.
would be an engineer, and
Yeah.
I loved drumming, and I knew that I started to get big into jazz and become a jazz nerd.
Jazz
And
is good.
jazz is good. What is your favorite jazz?
Oh, I love to listen to on Spotify. I like to put on French cafe jazz and just let it go.
Just let it go.
And I don't speak French, but I do in my head, and I do while I listen. And like, and I just kind of like sing along. I'm not singing any of the right words, but I love it. It brings me so much joy.
I feel like they should add cafe soundtrack to that as well, like just kind of mixed down so it feels like you actually are in a French cafe somewhere and there's like clinking and stuff.
But I feel like I am in a French cafe when I
That's
listen
awesome.
to it. I love it. I love it so much. I love, love, love jazz. When I first
your
moved,
coffee cups get smaller and your finger goes out even more.
when I first moved to New York, I had a boyfriend. We used to listen to the radio. Not a lot of people listen to the radio anymore,
Nice.
but we used to listen to the radio, and we used to put it on the jazz station and just drink wine. And I was like, I'm so fucking cool.
That's awesome. I
Like, I
love
just
it.
thought it was so cool. So I'm very fond of jazz. So there you are. You're working on your jazz education.
Working on my jazz. Yeah. Trying to do some jazz drumming. I studied with some jazz drummers in
Ooh.
college. I was not at the level that I should have been. I'm a rock and roll drummer who's done a couple jazz gigs as fill-in. And yeah, I wanted to work in a recording studio. And I remember, so the first semester of my senior year, my professor came in. This was 2000. My professor came in and he's like, I've never seen the market this good for the economy so good for our market at the moment. Things are booming for recording and audio and things like that. And I was like, all right, cool. Well, I'll probably be able to get something. 6 months later, at the end of the second semester, he's like, I've never seen the market worse than it is now. Stuff dumped so hard, and all of the studios in Detroit they didn't have enough work to fill half of their rooms. So they were clearing out everything. I couldn't get a coffee delivery job at any of these studios. They were some studios just showed people would show up and the lock would be on the front door, and they weren't open. So I got a job at the Olive Garden as a host.
As you do.
and then I got some jobs. I was working at a drum shop in the Metro Detroit area, like a mom and pop drum shop, which was the coolest job for a drummer. And then I also started working at a community television station, doing everything, like shooting, writing, producing, directing, editing, slow-mo. It's just a city run civic job, but it was really cool because I got to do everything, and I really liked it. What
great experience.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Right? Was it kind of like public access?
It was exactly. They were just about getting rid of their public access. And so there was a little bit of that, but I did end up working. So this station had a weekly news show. And the reason why they had a weekly news show is because there was a news producer who had all this crazy experience. He was vice president of ABC News in New York in the 70s, and he didn't want to retire. And so he was in his 70s when he started working for this cable access company. And I got to work under him and learn from him. And that was so cool to see him, write out this copy or send me on an interview and tell me what questions he wants, or, go shoot B-roll. Or I produced entire packages for the news program, and that was awesome. It was really cool. And while I was doing all of that, I made a pact with myself that because I love music so much and I had such a hard time I couldn't get into any recording studios that I wanted to. I found myself really falling in love with drumming and playing drums and music. And so I made a pact with myself or I asked myself rather, would I be upset if I didn't pursue music and drumming if nothing came of it until I was 40? Like, would I be upset if I turned 40 and I learned that if I didn't pursue this at all? And the answer to that was yes. So I started playing gigs and I started to practice as much as I can and just get out there as much as I can. And I ended up starting a rock and roll band with some friends, and that band toured for 6 years. So
amazing. What's the name of the band?
That band was called The Hard Lessons.
Hard Lessons. And did you learn them?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm still learning them. Yes, for sure. But that band was great because we bought a van and, cut our teeth in Detroit and played all the clubs and played with as many bands as we could, and then started booking road dates. And, a week and a half road dates would turn into 3-week road dates. And then that would turn into 6 weeks. And then, we'd be on the road for 10 weeks. And it was incredible. Just the ball was rolling, and it was just great. I loved it. And then that was awesome too, because I could come home and still have the TV producer job, because essentially you can't get fired from a city unless you kill someone. So so I could leave, and then I could come back, and just 2 days before I arrived, be like, hey, I'm going to be in town. And they would say, oh yeah, we have, 3 jobs for you. Come on in. Got you covered.
Great.
Yeah.
And so at what point were you like, you know what? I'm going to take this on the road and I'm going to head over to LA and live there.
It was after about 6 years with the band. The band was very, it was very mom and pop, and we did have interest from companies and labels and stuff like that, but we kept everything in house. And I felt I was getting close to 30 and I wasn't really making money. And I saw, I couldn't advance I was actually, at that point, I was working 2 community cable access jobs in 2 different cities. And
oh, wow. What was the other city?
The city of Warren, Michigan.
Cool.
And so you can't really advance in those positions unless literally somebody dies. There are just such coveted positions because of the benefits, and it's a secure job, so it's understandable. And I just, after being on the road and touring with bands and playing with bands and meeting people, I've always loved surfing. California seemed like the place to go. And so, I put my notice in with the band, I put my notice in with the TV stations, and ended up packing up and moving to LA.
Okay, so I just gotta ask.
Yeah.
Because I really want to learn how to surf. You would not believe.
Let's teach you.
It's on my list of things to learn in my life.
It's
gonna happen.
Put it at the top.
I got a couple more things I gotta do before I can put that one at the top, but it's on my list, and it's also really cold right now, so it's not gonna be on the top.
I just surfed in Washington. If I can do it, you can do it.
Well, yeah, but you're a little more seasoned, baby. I gotta ease into it. I guess my question is, what's the best advice you could give for someone who is going to learn how to surf? What's the best advice you can give to them? I.e. me.
Yeah. Get a longer board.
Okay.
Don't ride a 6-foot board.
Okay.
How tall are you?
I'm 5'7".
Get a 9'6" to 10-foot board.
Damn, it's not gonna be too long?
Nope.
No.
That's the misconception. I struggled I put myself through hell for years because I didn't think I could maneuver such a big board. I ride 8 to 9 foot boards, and that's what I like. I also ride in Malibu, and you kind of have to get in the wave a lot sooner, and a bigger board will help you get in the wave a lot sooner. On shorter boards, you have to wait until the wave is much steeper, and that planing face is steeper, so that you can get the momentum to go down the wave. But a longer board, you can achieve that more quickly on a slopier wave. So yeah,
get a longer board.
Get a longer board, longer than you think. Yeah, you'll be fine with like between 9 and 10 foot, but don't be afraid of that.
Okay, cool. Very good advice.
And be safe out there.
Oh well. Especially like with my back, like I just don't want to like do anything like crazy, but it's like it's water, so I feel like that's the safest place for me to be.
That's why I surf. Yeah. Sure, because I'm gonna fall into water, even though, surfboards are essentially just gigantic pieces of foam with knives on the bottom of them with the fins. So, that's why I say just be careful. Fearing water is a good thing. You just have to be able to manage your fear and understand when to be afraid and when to just know that you're going to get tossed and go with it. So. Okay.
So speaking of that fear, so there you are, you get to LA. Yeah. Were you scared? I mean, it's LA. Like,
sometimes I feel like I'm too dumb to be scared.
That's great.
Yeah, for sure. Because I showed up to LA with not a ton of money. I didn't get a job, like a safety job at all. And my plan was to just work in music. I was planning to audition and be a drummer and get back out on the road and be in bands. I ended up getting an acting agent about a month after being in LA.
Were you looking for one?
No. A fan of the band in Detroit knew someone in LA. They put me in touch, and then they contacted an agent on my behalf. And then the next day, that woman was on the phone with me saying, come down to Long Beach. We're going to sign you up today.
Awesome.
And take your headshots and like give you a little lesson in acting, because little people they're kind of a, rarity, and not every agent has a little person. And so I think they see me, and I'm not going out for 5'8" roles. There's so much in casting where they're like, this is the window, and it's a very small window, and they're definitely not hiring under 5 foot, and so being a musician and dipping your toe into acting is very awkward, because when you're in a rock and roll band or you're in a gigging band, that is your identity. At least that's what I thought coming from Detroit. Like, Detroit is a music town. You're not an actor. You're not a performer. You're not, being somebody else. You're being you, and you're playing music, and that's it. So acting seems like, what the heck are you doing? It seems like trying a lot. And
well, a lot of actors do seem like they're trying.
Yeah. I probably seem like I'm trying a lot, but
no. I think one of the best things about acting, and they just don't teach it enough, is like, to be a really good actor is not to act. Like, you're just supposed to kind of be that person in the moment. So you just have to really be honest with yourself in order to be honest with your audience.
100%. Yeah. That's the stuff you want to watch, right? In a scene or in a movie.
So much more riveting than someone that's looking like they're trying.
Yep.
We don't want to see anyone who looks like they're trying at anything, unless it's like the Olympics. And then we're like, you better look like you try it. Sports, like, you got to be in the zone.
We know you're going to get 7th, but you better look like you want 1st.
Yeah. So that must have been a whirlwind. You're in LA, you're trying to audition and book a band, and then all of a sudden you get an agent.
I get an agent.
Start sending you out.
I actually got hired as a grip, lighting grip on a reality show. A friend of mine from Detroit, her husband works as a grip, and he hired me for 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't be doing that work. I mean,
No.
come on. Like, I
Yeah.
can't stand on ladders and be lifting poles and all this stuff. Like, that's
Yeah.
not, I was so exhausted. Plus, I remember on the second day, I left early to go do an audition for a role, which again,
Oh,
you're not
yeah.
supposed to be doing that, man. Like,
No. No, I mean, that's super badass that you were like, I gotta go.
yeah. I mean, I was so green and had no idea what the heck I was doing whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And that will come up in just a little bit again in my story. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, so I booked a, also side note, I didn't want anything to do with little people.
Mm-hmm.
Like my world was touring in a rock band. If I ever saw a little person in Detroit or wherever, I would turn the other way, never wanted to encounter them, never wanted to say hi. I was so self-conscious about being seen with another one of us that I thought would just draw more attention to me, and
Mm-hmm.
how strange it is that there are two of these differently abled folks like right in front of somebody. Um, I was not I was not secure in that whatsoever. So
Mm-hmm.
I went to LA, and my first acting job in LA was on a TV pilot, and there were 11 little people, I think. And so, yeah.
So were you like tearing up my contract? Like,
No,
were you
I
upset
don't even
about
know what
that?
I got paid in cash for that one. I don't even, it was sketchy as heck. It was so whack.
Okay.
But I I always like, I knew it was different than Detroit because
Mm-hmm.
I knew these were professional people that were working on a show,
Mm-hmm.
and they were doing a job and they were there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And also just, and so I showed up, I really kind of tried to model myself after people who were humble and not judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
And so even in that situation, I showed up and was just trying to be as accepting as I possibly could. And they all knew each other, the other little people on the show, and they were joking around and they have history and stuff. But then they accepted me,
Yeah.
they were like, hey man, what's your story? What's going on? Like, whatever. And I'm sure I talked about drumming and the rock band and stuff. And there were some other people who were not as able as I am. And I remember walking more slowly with them and talking with them or helping them out at crafty or whatever. And like the crack appeared, in the door. And I was like, okay, I gotta, like, these people are kind of cool. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is all right. I'm still not one of you.
Mm-hmm.
Denial. But
So,
I kind of saw a little bit of light in that.
and so once you saw the light, what was the thing that was kind of like your Alice opening the door and like going through?
That didn't happen until later. That
Okay.
happened like years later.
Okay.
I still was a rock and roll drummer. That's how I saw myself. That's what I wanted to do. And I wasn't an actor. And, I that's how I distinguished myself from these other folks. Like, they
Mhm.
weren't musicians, they were working as actors. And I just
Okay.
happened to be somebody who got a job that day alongside them.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I saw it. Because a couple months later, I got booked to play drums on the Ellen DeGeneres show with
Oh, cool.
a 9-year-old prodigy Japanese guitarist.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, we're back. Here's a drumming gig. The family at home can see that I booked something, and this is going to be a good check, and this is cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then 3 weeks after that, Universal Pictures called me and they said, hey, we want to hire you to be a stand-in for a CGI character on a show in Santa Fe for the summer.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, do I want to do that? like, I don't know if I want to do that. And again, I didn't go to LA with that much money, so I'm dwindling this cash that's in my bank account.
Wow.
And I called up a friend of mine who is a drummer for a well-known artist. And I said, Butch, like, if I do this, I'm not going to be in LA. I'm not going to be able to go on auditions, to drum. And he's like, are you stupid? He's like, a gig is a gig, man. Do you need money? You need money. Go work. Like, go work for 3 months and then come back and play drums. Like, this isn't rocket science. Like, go do this. And I'm like, okay, I guess so.
Yeah.
And so I went to New Mexico, and that job just changed my life again, and I went to New Mexico with $7 in my bank account.
Oh, interesting that you wanted to stick it out in LA and really stretch that $7.
Did we talk about stubbornness at all? Should we talk about stubbornness?
I don't think it needs to be spoken about. I mean, that sentence was enough. Only because I've been an actor for the past 19 years, living here in New York. And I come from super modest beginnings, very humble, and I enjoy craft service, and I am not ashamed of the fact that sometimes, even yesterday, I took 2 packs of almonds. Yes, I did. Yeah. Yes, I'll take 3 bottles of water.
There you go.
So I couldn't imagine myself turning down a gig for 3 months. I don't care what it is. Yeah. It could be background. If it's 3 months, it's 3 months. I don't have to worry. As a performer, like, where's that check coming from? But to each their own, and on different trajectories and journeys and stuff. So I totally get it. So there you are. You do that 3-month gig. Then what?
Then I had some money in the bank account, and I came back to LA wanting to play drums again. I had a lot of confidence after that too.
Yeah.
I also thought things actually did end up working out with that agency.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I don't need an agent. I'm just going to get what I want. So I didn't even go out for any agencies or anything like that for a while, which is not the smartest thing. And there were a couple of the drumming gigs that came through that were cool. And then there were some acting jobs and some event jobs, friends that I had made from that very first pilot job were contacting me. And I slowly learned. I got called actually that year to do Radio City Music Hall, the Christmas Spectacular.
Oh yeah, it's a little known show.
Yeah, it's a little known show. There's like the Rockettes and stuff like that on that one.
Yeah.
And I turned that down.
Yeah, that one doesn't. It's not a stable check. You just weren't about it.
I wasn't about it, and my head was really clouded. You know what I mean? And it was just, I wanted to play music. That's who I thought I was. Thankfully, it wasn't so clouded that, I took the advantage and actually got, oh my God, there's a bear outside my door right now.
Oh my God, really?
Do you want to see this?
Yeah, please.
Can you see that?
Oh my God. Oh, you got Yoki over there. Do you normally have a bear outside? Do you own a bear?
No, I do not. That is crazy.
Crazy.
I'm living in a cabin in the woods at the moment.
That's amazing.
Holy crap, that's crazy.
Yeah.
If I get killed on this, there needs to be proof.
There totally is proof. Oh my God. Has that happened yet?
So the first day I saw a bear was yesterday, and it was at my neighbor's house. But yeah, my heart's kind of going right now. Like, my temperature just went up big time.
I bet. Well, that's that flea.
Yeah.
Fright, flight. Yeah.
Let's talk about Eff Your Fears right now. Let's talk about F the bear. You see him in the background?
I do see him in the background. I do see him in the background.
Holy cow.
Well, are all of your doors closed?
They are all closed. And I know that there are pots and pans that I might have to like bang on to get the bear out of here.
Yeah. Do you need to stop?
So is that good for the show? Having a bear on the show?
It's a first.
It's a first. You got video of this guy, right?
I did. Are there two of them?
I only saw one that looks pretty small.
Okay. It looked small whenever you turned to the side.
Yeah, it wasn't a huge bear. The one I saw yesterday was like 8 foot. It was gigantic. This is crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm living in a mountain cabin north of LA, about an hour and a half.
You're in nature.
I'm full in nature.
Yeah.
I'm at 6,000 feet elevation, and that's a snow-covered pine mountain top.
Oh my God.
In the distance. It's crazy.
That's amazing.
It's pretty darn cool. But yeah, my heart is definitely going right now.
I bet. There you are. You turned down Radio City, which, I mean, we have a lot of Broadway performers and theater performers who watch the show, listen to the show. So for them, they're gonna be like, what? That's crazy. But again, you said you were a drummer. You had
that, yes. And also I did the math as best I could.
Mm-hmm.
And Radio City does not put people up in New York. I didn't understand like how much overtime I would be getting. So they gave me the rate and I did all the math. And for me to sublease my place, or maybe not be able to sublease my place for like 5 months or 4 months, plus the amount that I was going to get, plus the expenses that I calculated going to New York, I didn't see the point. I think I was going to make like $2,000 from what they had said. That's not the case. All of my friends that did that, they're like, oh yeah, overtime was insane. We made so much money. So I didn't know about all the extra overtime, and I wish I would have, because it would have made my decision. But
well,
yeah.
So you made the choice. You stuck with what you had in your gut, which I think, you know, the great thing about that is hindsight's 2020, but you're also able to go down a different journey, which leads you to where you're going anyway. Yep. So what was the next stop on the road?
The next stop on the road was, I did some more work in LA, and then things are going to get crazy. Then I moved back to Michigan to go to music school, because all of my friends, I just wanted to play music. That's where my head was. And it wasn't rock band stuff anymore. I wanted to be better at music and get in better bands, maybe in LA, but just have my living be playing music, because I felt like doing these auditions, I'm not trained as an actor. That wasn't what I've done very much. And so my heart was always in music. And so I went back to Detroit and enrolled in music school. Found out I really hated being in music school as a 30-year-old with a bunch of 18-year-olds. You know, I already had a degree, so I didn't need to take those courses. I just wanted to, you know, get good at theory and drumming and different styles and reading and playing in those ensembles. And second semester, I just really started to dislike my choice. And I got a call from the woman who got me the role on Paul. That was the alien CGI stand-in job that I did. And she said, hey, I know you're in Michigan. Do you want to work on a film? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, that's cool. So she put me in touch, and I started to work on Oz the Great and Powerful.
Ooh.
And I worked 5 months on Oz the Great and Powerful, doing stunts, and I was trained to drive a team of miniature horses.
What?
Yeah. And then I was background for like 3 months. So it was it was a great job.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the time that that little crack, in the door just burst right open. I worked with 50 other little people on that show, and so many of us became great friends. There was,
Mm-hmm.
Because there were a lot of people that came in from out of town, and we just became a family, and it was for such an extended period of time that everybody got to know everyone. Everybody learned the personalities of everyone, and it was just awesome. It was so fun. It was a great show, the great cast, great everything. It was awesome. And um yeah, lifelong friends were made at that show. And it just showed me all these different types of little people. There were so many different types of conditions and attitudes and personalities and stuff, and they're hilarious, and they're people, and they're funny, and they are sincere and heartfelt, and it was such a good time. It was great. And so from that was like, okay, yeah, not only do I want to watch out for these people, but I want to be friends with them too.
That's awesome. Do
Yeah.
you think there was some ego in there that was like,
Oh, plenty of ego. I
man?
I it's like subdued ego, if I can
Mm-hmm.
call it that, because like I said, I would look out for the folks, and if somebody needed to sit down or something like that, I would gladly offer up my chair, or talk to anybody and get to know them. But it was kind of surface. It was on the surface level, before
Mm-hmm.
that. But on that show, it got deeper for sure. And I think the ego was, it's like parallel roads.
Mm-hmm.
I always could jump over to the music thing and have that be like what I really was. And then, I was also a friend to these folks, these little people. And those parallel roads, yeah, started to come together.
And so, about what year was that when you were in Detroit and doing Oz the Great and Powerful?
Um 2011, I believe we were filming.
And so, coming out of that, what were you thinking? Were you like, maybe I'm going to do a little bit more? Because I mean, you'd gone to Michigan to do more music, but again,
Yep.
this like acting thing
Yep, I
kept
know.
popping up.
So at that point when I was doing Oz, I was making my living as a musician. I was in the circuit. I was getting sub calls. I had a regular band that would play every weekend. And so I would get paid for my stuff. And I was getting much better and just being a drummer around town. And I
Mhm.
loved that. And I had a little jazz group, and we would play at some different restaurants and everything. And I was like, this is what I want to do. But I also hated winters there. And I
Mm.
would still go back to LA to visit my friends. And, when you show up to LA and there's palm trees and you can go swimming in December and stuff, it's like, this is more me. I grew up loving surf and skate culture, and that's where that all is. And that just fits with me.
Mhm.
And so I, yeah, I started to want to go back to LA and do that, get back in the swing of things. And it wasn't to go back and play music. It was to go back and work acting jobs and stuff like that. I still wanted to play music, but I wasn't going
Mhm.
to go for touring stuff.
So, do you feel like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but do you feel like that experience was kind of like one of those experiences? You know how we all have that one year. 2010 was like a life changer for me. Like we all have that one year or those few years, that like we could really feel ourselves moving into that, like leveling up, moving into that next realm of like who we become. Was that one of those years for you?
Maybe it was. I don't totally know.
Mm-hmm.
I it was a good change, and I felt good about the change, but I still felt like something wasn't totally connected or clicking. It was
Okay.
kind of maybe a little bit going through the motions,
Mm-hmm.
again, I'm not hugely passionate about making a career as an actor. It's
Mm-hmm.
what I could do, and I have enough connections in LA to get me some jobs, and that was the big thing, was to do that. But I also settled into that, and
Yeah.
I would love acting when I would get a fun job. I've done a bunch of costume gigs and commercials and TV shows and stuff, and those were always really fun. And I love being on set, and I love that creative process of
Mm-hmm.
the whole team is working together and making this vision. Um, but I don't know. It was tough because I never saw roles for little people that weren't these costume gigs or these elf gigs or these creature jobs. And it seemed strange that we had to audition for these, because anybody who's small can kind of do that. I thought anyway. I mean,
Well,
if you're mobile enough to do it, then it's to me, I was a little bit disappointed that it wasn't just a regular role. There weren't any regular roles for little people. It was always these, creature roles.
yeah. Yeah. No, that would definitely, because what I was gonna say is, well, with everything, there's type, because like I can audition for this amount
Yeah.
of the pie, and like, yours is even, if you're choosing acting gigs, like it is a small piece, but I
Oh,
see what you're saying, like so everything is basically going to be some sort of like caricature of something,
I mean,
or a creature. Yeah, that's gotta.
98% of it is, and
Yeah.
the the guy who is doing the roles that are not those, and positions of power, are is Peter Dinklage, and
Mm,
he's a trained, experienced, incredible actor, and he deserves to have those roles. But there's a gap there, right? There's a huge
yeah.
gap between let's put him in a bunch of goop and prosthetics to, you know here's like an actual portrayal of a person.
Yeah.
And there's really nothing in between. There's some reality stuff in between, but that's kind of the majority of it.
No, you're totally right. So, God, yeah, I think that can definitely ease on everyone's brain, and like you could see how, well, but there were job offers, why. Yeah, I could see, and especially like you are a skilled musician, and being a skilled musician, it doesn't matter who you are, it's what you can do, and like you can do that, and so of course you would gravitate toward wanting to do that because that's your jam.
Yep.
And no matter what you would be, having that skill, period, is just always really cool. We all know musicians are just cool,
Yeah.
especially drummers.
Yeah. I mean, that's I held on to that for so long,
Yeah.
and just death grip. And
Mm-hmm.
it's you it's still, I can still feel myself gripping that,
Mm-hmm.
because it's who I was for so long, and I can hear all of my friends in Detroit and what they would say about certain things here and there. And um it's just, it's a tough thing to get over, and it's a tough thing to move on from.
Mm-hmm. So there you are. You're in Detroit. You just finished your gig there. You head back to LA.
Yep.
What's the plan?
The plan is just to suss out acting gigs and see
Yeah.
what I can get myself into. And it was it was decently good for a while. I started to do events and things like that. There were costume events and corporate parties, and
Mm-hmm.
in addition to productions. And I kind of would pacify myself or tell myself that, these jobs are good when I'm dressing up as a character. I mean, there are girls who get dressed up really sexy and hired at parties. And there are guys who are, they don't have their shirts on and stuff. Like, at least I'm covered up,
Yeah.
and getting paid more than they are, most
Mm-hmm.
likely. And when I would be at these parties, I started to get really social and just talk to everyone that would come up to me or want a photograph. And I thought that was a really good thing, because these people would come up to me and say, "Oh, it's so cool you're dressed up for this festive event," and then we'd have a conversation. They would find out that I'm a drummer and that I love surfing and stuff, and then
Mm-hmm.
maybe we'd exchange information and just be in touch. And I don't know. I would tell myself, like, this is good because you're giving these people exposure to little people that they might not have.
Mm-hmm.
And I told myself that for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to not believe that anymore because,
Mm-hmm.
when you are dressed up and you're playing this role that doesn't really garner any respect whatsoever, it's difficult because that's what people constantly see. And if they don't see the other part where, it's not like I'm an elf at a party and then there's also a little person who's emceeing the event.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the little people are reserved for the costumes, like always put them there.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to realize that, but that's, what I came to realize. And um yeah, I mean, it's time to change that.
So then that kind of brings us to the podcast. At what point were you like, you know what? We got to start talking about some stuff. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
um it took me a long time because I started my podcast with a friend of mine, and she had a podcast, and she was saying, "Man, you have so many crazy stories in your life.
Mm-hmm.
You need to make a show about yourself and talk about what you've done and the experiences that you've had." And
Mm-hmm.
people don't know about little people all that much, so not have it be this salacious thing or this like trivial show, but
Yeah.
actually share your life. And the first couple episodes are about me, but then I really decided that it's going to be so much better if I include other people. And also, a few of my friends heard my first show, and they asked me, "Why do I identify with what you're saying in these 3 minutes? Why do I identify so much with what you're saying? This is crazy." I felt the
Mm-hmm.
same way. I didn't want to see other little people. I didn't want to talk about who I am because I didn't want to bring down the vibe. I didn't want to associate with other folks. I didn't want to, put myself out there. And I'm like, people need to hear this, people need to,
Yeah.
this needs to be shared, and this needs to be out there. And so, yeah, so I started interviewing folks and putting them on my show, and it's going, like, the ball is rolling. It's really, really cool. It's a show that I'm really proud about. And uh it delves into stuff that's uncomfortable and stuff that you have to be vulnerable to share. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm so proud of the folks who've come on the show to discuss what we've discussed. It's not the easiest thing, but I think when you do get it out there, you conquer that fear of whatever you have about your existence, or
Mm-hmm.
what you believe is your existence.
So, as you bring up fear, when you feel fears start to kind of creep in your own life, like what do you do to combat that?
I go get a pan and knock and a spoon, and I scare the bear away from the door.
That works on both levels. That's good. That's good. Go on.
No, I'm still figuring out ways to I experience so much fear. It's insane how much fear I experience. And when I actually look at it and call it out, I think that's the biggest thing is, right? You need to call it out and say what it is, because if you don't recognize what it is, it's just going to be this swirl of confusion and a time suck. And at least if you call it out and you label it, you can find a way to deal with it. And you can find ways that will get you through it or teach you to manage whatever fear that is, you know. But I've had so much fear about just putting out episodes because I was afraid of what other people were going to think or say or feel about my show, you know, other little people even. And it's like, no, everybody shares. There's so many people who share things. Just share this. And the more that, like, at that conference, I had such an incredible response like that. There's so much fuel for my fire that came from that. And I love that. It just makes me want to go more and more. And I'm taking a couple months off to clean up some stuff with my show, and I'm starting season 2 early next year.
Ooh, can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be, I'm really excited. And there's just so much that I like, that crack has just opened completely now. And there's so much that I want to try, and there's so much that I want to see if I can achieve and accomplish. And, you know, coming on shows like yours, it's incredible. It's so cool to be able to speak and represent this community in my experience.
I love it. Well, I'm so happy that we met at the podcast convention.
Me too.
Yeah, I really, really am. And I'm so grateful that you came and chatted with us about your career and also like the ups and the downs and like coming to terms. And I think that, you know, I know from my pre-existing audience, we may not have a lot of little people, but I think that there are definitely certain struggles that can be construed as universal themes. And so I definitely see how people will be like, yeah, that may not happen to me, but I feel that, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's a great thing, kind of like what you're saying about sharing. Like, everyone's story is super valid and it's going to be important to someone. And it's never the person that you expect for it to be important to.
Yeah, absolutely. And as little people, we experience everything that average height folks do. You know, it's the same. It's not like we're immune to any of those things, but we also have the social constructs and the physical challenges and, you know, different sources of depression or other feelings. But overcoming all of those makes you stronger, and it builds personality, and it just drives who you are in most of the time a really positive way. And I think that that's so cool and important.
I think you're cool and important. Christophe, where can people find you?
Oh, you can find my podcast. It's called I'm Kind of a Big Deal on Apple Podcasts and everywhere you get your podcasts. You can also find me on Instagram at Big Deal Pod, or you can find me at Christophe ZD, ChristopheZD.
ZD. All right. Well, everybody, make sure that you are following the podcast. Check it out, subscribe, leave a review. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
for going through this journey of this day with us. And I'm so grateful that you're here. Christophe, I'm so grateful that you're here. It's a blessing. It's a blessing, especially being able to talk to people that you don't know that are in the middle of the forest with a bear.
Yeah. The bear says bye too, by the way. The bear just
Bye, Yogi.